Hello, everyone. It's Lisa Norell. Welcome to July 23rd. This is the Mindful Marketer Livestream episode number 42. Yes, 42. So many of you are fanboys and fangirls out there. Thank you for staying with us and continuing to return to our live streams. Oh my gosh, it is Friday. And as we see so many people returning partially to work in this very hopefully post-COVID work environment, how do we make sure that we remain promotable? And how do we operate differently? How do we think differently? How do we communicate differently so that we are promotable in our organizations? There are so many opportunities to get promoted right now. And so before I bring Amii Barnard-Bahn onto the screen with us, I want you to know some statistics and some examples of why this topic is so compelling. Number one, there are over 9.1 million open jobs in the United States. And that in itself is exciting. So there are opportunities for you to get promoted in many places. Number two, let's take a look at a company many of you will recognize. Chipotle, one of the best places to get a burrito. Right now, Chipotle has been very successful at bringing new people on. They announced 10,000 new job openings this year. They were able to raise their prices by 4%. They are known as a digital and technology innovator. They are one of the few restaurant chains that has thrived during the pandemic. Why? Because they do things like a $5,400 tuition bonus when you are part of their crew. And there are opportunities for advancement. So they are going against the tide of many restaurants that have not been able to hire people and have not been thinking creatively during the pandemic. So there is opportunity everywhere. So as we talk today with Amii Barnard-Bahn, I want you to look at the world of promotability through three lenses, okay? So, and also tell us here in the chat where you're from, because we want to take your live questions, and we know several hundred of you signed up in advance for today's live stream. So think of promotability through three lenses. Through the global view of what's going on in our environment and society, through the lens of an organization, and finally, through the lens of your own personal career. Now, let's talk a little bit about Amii, because she's a great friend of mine and a fellow music lover. We both love this group called Pink Martini, and we talk often about their wonderful music and performances. But besides that, Amii has been voted by Forbes as one of the top executive coaches in the compliance and legal profession. She has helped scores of people get promoted and join boards of directors. She's also a fellow colleague in the Marshall Goldsmith 100 coaches community, of which I am a member. And if you have not picked up her new Promotability Index guidebook, she's going to talk a little about it and give us an inside lens into some of the things she's learned over the past few decades about not only what it took to be promotable, but today, what does it take to be promotable? So without further ado, Amii, good afternoon.
Hey, Lisa, thanks so much for having me.
So where does this find you today? I know you're an avid traveler.
I am. I'm sitting at a piano bench at my friend's home in Berkeley because we're finally getting some live music in the area.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we love live music. We love getting back together with people again, right? We have people from Merhaba. We have Todd from New York City. And I know we had people sign up and join us from India, Kenya, Arizona, United States, Nepal, Ireland, London, UK. I mean, so we have a global audience today and we're taking questions. We also have someone from the Congo. So welcome everyone. We want you all to be promotable today. Can you help us just by starting with a definition, Amii, of in today's world, what do you mean by the word promotable?
Promotability for me is lifelong learning. So it means that you will never be expendable in your job. That's the short answer. And it means that you are paying attention to your career, to the external environment, to what clients need, and you're aligning your interests with those needs. No matter where you are, whether you're the CEO, paying attention to your employees, or whether you are making your way up.
Yes. And isn't that really exciting, though, about even in industries maybe that you might think aren't that progressive, like the traditional bricks and mortar restaurant industry, to see this people, 10,000 new jobs in Chipotle. And, the market is rewarding creativity, and they're clearly successful at matching people's talent to these new digital platforms and products and service models, because their stock was up 12% in the last few months.
Yeah, pretty
so it's
exciting.
Kind of cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is. It is. So I want to talk to you a little bit too about just the things you have seen. You have advised hundreds of people over the decade or two on how they can be more promotable and contribute more to their company's growth. So talk to us about what's different now that we're looking back at the last 16 or 18 months.
Sure. I think there are a number of trends, Lisa, that are hitting. Certainly with the pandemic, I think people have spent so much more time reflecting on how am I spending my time? Am I happy? And how much time do I have left? A lot of us were hit with serious healthcare conditions or healthcare conditions of a colleague. And that can cause people to reflect a little more deeply. And we weren't in the office all the time, so we had time to do that. So I would say that's one trend. And then we have Gen Z coming up that has greater expectations around purpose and around their work fulfilling their purpose. I would say in the past, with baby boomers, they felt a job was a job and it was a means to an end. And you went home and you did your life. Gen Z expects much more of an integration of their values with their job. And so that puts an interesting pressure on organizations to really be clear about their mission statement, to pay attention to the employer-employee contract in terms of what are you giving me lately? Am I growing? Are you giving me skills and access to knowledge or mentors or sponsors, even better, for my career, so that no matter where I go, and I may not stay with you for more than 3 to 5 years, by the way, and that should be okay with you. This is a young person's perspective. What are you doing to help me be promotable, if not here, somewhere else?
Yes. And I mean, with so many job openings, whether people want to hear this or not. Okay. And as you know, Amii, you've been on some of my past live streams. I don't throw the softballs over the fence and go, oh, we're just going to talk about butterflies and puppy dogs here. I mean, we got to talk about how the job dynamics have changed. People who are promotable are in the driver's seat, right?
Yeah. Yes, I believe in radical self-reliance for your career. And what that means is some of what we've been talking about, which is paying attention, having deep conversations with your boss and knowing how to do that, and making sure that you're proactive about understanding your impact in the organization.
Yes, and any C-suite executive who's participating today that is saying, "Oh, we just have great products and services. We'll just focus on selling. We don't have time for all these things called employee engagement and setting goals and objectives to help promote people." Oh my gosh, don't worry. You'll be one of the most easily poached organizations and you'll lose your best people. I hate to be so blunt, but we're seeing it happen.
Yes, people want to be people who are careful and thoughtful are wanting to grow, and they're looking to their organization to help them with that.
Most definitely. Have you seen any new methods of people, organizations, in how they are setting people up for success and promotion, Amii?
I think the number one thing is having a good dialogue. People don't leave companies, they leave their manager. It's because their manager has the direct responsibility for their compensation, promotion, and just day-to-day. Your day-to-day life work quality is around your boss, right? So again, what I see smart companies doing is checking in, showing more empathy, particularly during the pandemic, than I think normally would have been set, because we had stronger boundaries around the personal and the professional, and those just all but evaporated during the pandemic, because suddenly people found themselves working at home with kids running around in the background, or spouses at home, or low bandwidth, or fill in the blank. And so the companies that are doing well are ones that balanced empathy with the professional boundaries, but asked about obstacles, talked about schedule, talked about things, and worked out some of the hard questions. The trick coming back to work, of course, is that's all needing to be renegotiated. And so I think the number one important thing to do is to have an open dialogue, and for managers to have one-on-ones with their employees. They should be doing that regularly anyway, but they should specifically dedicate a one-on-one to talking about the transition, what's expected, what's needed, whether there are any special accommodations or issues that the employee has in terms of coming back to the office or staying home, what's worked well, what's not worked well, how are they going to work together as a team if it's a hybrid where some people are in the office and some are not, because there's a thing called proximity bias, which is if you're in the office and you're with the boss more, you have better information and you have a more likelihood of getting promoted or getting special projects. And so companies who want to make sure that everyone has a fair shot are going to need to think through processes and check-ins and things that equalize that type of environment.
Yes, everyone noticed that topic, or that key takeaway there, proximity bias, because, we've got a lot of debate going on. Many of you already know that I host a nationwide community of chief marketing officers called the Marketing Growth Leaders. And, this whole topic of how to design the workforce when we start getting back to help our high performers stay with us, right? And adapt to some of these probably permanent lifestyle changes. This is an important issue. And I think anyone that's saying, just get back to this 9 to 5, 5 day a week model, and if you don't, you're not promotable, I think it's not flexible enough. I mean, it's just not flexible enough. By the way, Amii, we have someone from Washington. Speaking of my hometown area, we have Hunter Montgomery, a chief marketing officer of Churn Zero, who has a question for us. Hunter, welcome.
Hey, Hunter.
Hey, how are you all doing?
Good.
So I was kind of curious in terms of, you guys brought up a lot of great points about, how do we transition to the new world? I guess one big thing is how do you, if you have this kind of a hybrid model of some are in the office, some are out of the office, everyone's relying on Slack to have these conversations. How does someone make sure that they are top of mind, that they're getting the right message, and they're letting everybody in the organization, and not only the organization but their boss, that they are doing what they need to be doing, and they are making an impact. So they are some of it that's critical that they need to keep and make sure they don't leave.
Hunter, it's a great question. And I'll mention that when I coach clients, I've had many clients that are global. And in a way, this isn't new. It's just now widespread. There have always been global teams where executives have been located very far away from home office. And when I was an executive at McKesson, for example, I had to run around the world and make sure that my offices there felt engaged and intrigued, and people that were far away often felt that gap. And so now I think that's just more widespread because of the pandemic. So what I would say, just like my clients and I worked out who were remote or global and managing global teams who maybe had never met some of their teams, particularly now, you need a communication strategy. So you should sit down and do an analysis of your key stakeholders. Who needs to be in the loop regularly? Who needs to just be informed a little bit? And think about what would fit with your company culture in terms of keeping them informed in a light, helpful way. And you could directly have that conversation with your boss, with your colleagues, and other people. And I don't want to call it a campaign because that sounds a little too narcissistic, but you need to have a strategy.
That's great. And what about for the people kind of have the old school offices where sure they get Slack and they kind of get it, but to your point about proximity, how does someone overcome that? Well, if I don't see you in the office, or you can't walk down the hall and talk to me, I kind of forget about you. It's
a challenge. So people who are super old school and where they really need the physical, that's what Lisa mentioned it earlier. Those are, if they're really hardcore about that, those are the companies that are going to lose Gen Z for sure. Right. And they're not going to be cultivating a funnel for talent coming up the chain.
Great. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the question.
That was great, Hunter. Thank you. And congratulations also to Churn Zero on all of your success.
Right.
And you're touching on something here, Amy. I'm gonna tweak your response slightly around my own perspective. We have a lot of our top CMOs who hire people in their 40s and 50s who also made some lifestyle choices and changes during the pandemic and said, I'm not getting on $4.95 and spending 4 hours a day in my car.
Right.
Thank you I have a studio set up in my home. I can be productive, I promise you. And I'll come in, but not, 5 days a week. Let's do something good for the carbon footprint. So I'm not sure it's age specific anymore.
I don't think it is. And so I didn't mean to imply that. Managers should have always been managing on outcome anyway. And so this has just given us an opportunity to get really good at managing outcome versus Facetime.
I love that. I hope you guys are grabbing these mic drop moments. I mean, it's about results, not Facetime.
Exactly.
It's about results, not Facetime. That's a great comment. By the way, these comments keep coming in. We have India, South Dakota, California, Mali, and Brazil. I'm just really overwhelmed and pleased that so many of you were able to join us today. Tell us in the chat, what are you doing to be more promotable as we all return to some form of hybrid work? Oh, Eric, welcome. Here's what Eric is sharing. I love it. Leaders must be employee story seekers and story promoters. New skills are needed for sure. What are your clients doing in the world of storytelling, Amy, to help people feel like this is a place I want to be promoted?
They're talking about what they're doing. They're a lot more transparent. And not only from what they're doing, but how they're feeling. I'd say that gets to the empathy and the connection. I had one client who had gotten some negative feedback in a town hall meeting kind of midway through the pandemic, maybe 6 months ago, when it was pretty bad. The numbers were bad. We didn't have the vaccine out, in good distribution mode, and especially in a lot of other countries outside the US. We've been very fortunate in the US to have that distribution. And he got feedback that he didn't do enough to acknowledge people's pain and the struggle and the hard work during the pandemic. And so we worked together to put together some, a reboot of his talking points, and he apologized, and that went a long way. And he got a lot of really great feedback from employees because they hadn't felt that he was feeling it, that he was getting, that they really were working hard, even though he couldn't see them, that kind of thing.
Yes, and I want to give a shout out to leaders who are now saying to people, look, we know you have been working really, really hard during the pandemic. We don't expect you to put the pedal to the metal at that intensity 12 months a year, 24/7, encouraging people to refresh and go on vacation this summer, take some time away, unplug your darn phones and your computers, and just be with people you love outside or elsewhere. So it's such an important time to do that and come back feeling more clear about what I really value and what kind of role I can take on. Amy, we also have Todd joining us from New
Okay.
York City. Todd Sherrish is joining us. Hi, Todd.
Hey, Todd.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Amy. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of your show, Lisa, as you know. In fact, this is next up on my summer reading list. So I got this all ready.
Nice.
And I have Amy's book right here. So I filled out Amy's Promotability Index. Now I can't wait to read the book to help me decipher it and figure out what to do next. But I was going to ask a question that you already kind of covered in terms of proximity bias. So I'm going to throw a curveball here.
All right.
Even though I talk loud and fast, I'm an extreme introvert. I always say I'm a 3Bs guy, a back of the room, behind the scenes bookworm. So a lot of times earlier in my career, I thought, oh, my work will speak for itself and I'll get promoted. But then I learned that you need to market yourself, right? You need to sell yourself. Your work doesn't speak for yourself. You have to. So what are some tips, combining Lisa's book with yours, what are some tips for how can we introverts self-market so that we could be promoted when our extroverted colleagues often get promoted ahead of us, even though we may be more skilled and more talented?
You need to find a way that's comfortable for you to share your results and to share what you're doing. You could do a weekly end report of, hey, just wanted to give you a quick bullet summary and make it really short, really bullet around what your boss cares about. Number one, know what your boss cares about is the first thing. And my recent newsletter talks about how to do that succinctly, either in a one-on-one meeting or in an email. But just, I would say, if you're introverted, that saves their time. You're not asking for calendar. That's one way, one quick hit. I would say you're right, Todd. You cannot, and when women do this a lot too, they assume that just doing the work is enough, and it's not. I recently wrote an article for Harvard Business Review on promotions. They're not just about your skills, they're about your relationships. And so you need to find a way to build that relationship and solidify it, particularly in a remote environment.
Great. Thank you, Amy. That's great. I appreciate it.
And Todd, I will second what Amy just shared. And remember one of my favorite adages from a friend, Alan Weiss: if you don't toot your own horn, there is no music.
I like that.
And I think mindset plays such an important role. I mean, when we get up in the morning, there are two ways we can wake up. One is, oh, another slog through enemy territory.
Mm-hmm.
And another way we can get up is say, wow, where will I make a difference today? I am so excited to make a difference somewhere. And, which choice will I make?
That's great. That's great. Thank you,
Yes.
Lisa. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you so much, Todd. Boy, we have got some really interesting debates going on here in the chat. I'm very happy to hear that from Blair Ballard. Thank you. Yes, so they're doing self-evaluations and people are mentoring each other.
Nice.
That is great.
That's really important. And that's an easy thing to set up. People have used my Promotability Index actually for mentoring programs. I have a case study coming out on that. And that's a great way to get people connected that might not otherwise be connected and to show support. And it's very simple to implement. It's low cost. So companies should
I love
be thinking on that. Yeah.
Amy, how many mentors do you think you have right now? I'd love to compare notes with you just for a moment.
Gosh, there's so many, and there's so many kinds, a lot in our network, and for so many reasons. I was in corporate, in various executive roles for over 20 years, and I was an attorney in a law firm before that as an employment lawyer. So I have people spread out all over for different things. But I'd say, over a dozen that I talk to regularly.
Yes, I think I'm right up there with you, Amy. I mean, you and I are swimming in the Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches community. There's like 370 of us now. And, I might ask for mentoring on technology and digital skills from someone. But then when it comes to strategy, I might turn to a different person.
Yeah,
and if
totally.
it comes, so it really also depends on what's the question. And I also want to answer Eric's question here. Eric, I think we need to schedule a separate coaching session with you because you've got so many great questions this afternoon. Who is responsible for making sure that this level of empathy and understanding of personal branding is a priority
in companies? Well, it starts with the tone at the top. So the CEO has to set the tone and make it a priority. Otherwise, it's usually not a priority on the trickle down to all the senior management. But that said, it's everyone's responsibility, and I believe that anyone can lead from anywhere. So even if you have a terrible boss or a terrible CEO, you can still do what you can with your area of locus of control and influence. And so I would say that ideally you have a CEO that's come out with it, but if not, do it as much in your area. And I've had experiences in both where I've had to just give up on the top line, but my whole team, I give them what they need. And then opposite, sometimes I'll try to influence up and make it a priority. CHRO should be involved. And ideally the head of strategy and talent, because if you don't have great talent, you're not going to be able to execute your strategy. So they should care.
That's great. Thank you, Amii. We have another question from Caitlin, and then we're going to jump back to a couple other questions that have been persistent in our CMO communities. How can someone who does not have concrete leadership experience demonstrate those qualities in order to be promoted?
Yeah, well, that's partly why I developed the Promotability Index Guidebook. I have a free assessment. You can get it by texting Promote Me, all one word, to 22444. It's an 82-question self-assessment around the 5 elements of promotability, which are self-awareness, external awareness, strategic thinking, executive presence, and thought leadership. And so I guarantee you, even if you just take the assessment and you don't want to buy the book, it will give you ideas of what you could do to position yourself for the next role. Half of being promotable is others viewing you as promotable. And I would say, act like you already have the role. And I don't mean, walking around telling people what to do. I mean more like know what senior management cares about. If you're a publicly traded company, read the 10K, like know where your business is headed, read industry magazines that your executive team is reading, understand if you can demonstrate that, hey, you're not using me enough. That's basically, you want to show rather than tell that you are ready for the next promotion. And you do that by asking good questions, going above and outside your job, volunteering for task forces that aren't in your area of expertise. Every company I know had a sudden pandemic task force and now has like a healthcare team because the CEO didn't expect to be the chief health officer, a year ago, and they need help. And so there's never been a better opportunity, I think, to cross-functionally gain. If you do a good job on a project outside your area, they're like, oh, they really care about the company. They don't just want to do their job. They want to do more. And you might gain a sponsor outside your area that says, hey, I could see her being a marketing assistant, or I could see her working in digital, and I'm going to give it a shot because I saw her work on that project, and that's more than what her day job is. So that's what I would suggest.
Some great thoughts and feedback there. Thank you very much, Amii. I want to step back for a minute. And as you know, I'm known to be a bit of a provocateur in these live streams. I want to talk about some of the systemic challenges that we are witnessing in our world. I mean, we've been not just through a public health crisis, but social unrest, workforce challenges, a whole host of things. I'm going to tell you some things I'm hearing privately that I can't quote and attribute to any specific people. I have people I've met with who say things like, I go to staff meetings and people will stand up and say, I deserve to be promoted because I've been here 6 months. I deserve to be promoted because of the color of my skin or because I am a woman. What's going on out there? What's winning right now? Meritocracy, tokenism, entitlement. What is happening out there?
Well, there's a lot. There has been a strong history of bias in the world, racism, sexism, all kinds of discrimination. And so I think there's a pent up feeling that maybe people haven't been standing up for themselves as much as they should. And certainly people are feeling more supported, or in some cases, you might call it emboldened, to make those requests, like you mentioned, the examples around after Me Too, after Black Lives Matter, to make sure that they are being heard. To Todd Church's question around, am I tooting my own horn enough? And I think people are hearing that, I need to do that. That doesn't mean they always do it well, right? So that is not a great way to do it. I would never recommend that. That should be a private conversation with your manager and your leader. And then your leader has to be equipped, and some are not well equipped, which is what my book is all about, equipping leaders how to have those conversations and break down promotability into objective, measurable criteria that anyone, if they have the ambition and the hard work they're willing to put in it, can achieve. So managers should be thinking about not just ignoring it. It's not going to go away, especially if someone's angry or they felt that they've been passed over. HR can support you and coach you, but you should be able to articulate why you're promoting someone else over someone that's there, what's missing, what's the gap between where they are now and where they might need to be to get promoted. And in some cases, there may not be a promotion available. I've had people reach out to me who are very frustrated, and then when I ask them a few questions, they're in a tiny company that'll never have a general counsel, for example. It's a one attorney role. There's nowhere to go. And I say, you have to be realistic. You probably need to leave to go up because you already got the top job. And if they're honest with you, and it's tough because some companies don't want to lose someone. So sometimes they aren't direct about the chances of promotion. I don't think that's a great strategy. I think in the end you lose because you lose respect of the person. But sometimes people have had that heart to heart with the employee, and then the employee has realized, because they've gotten the honest response from the company. I've had a couple clients who have said, I was mad. Now that they've told me, I've thought about it, and I'm really happy here, and I have a really good work life, and it's a devil I know, and I'm getting paid pretty well. I've done some market research, and it changes their mindset, and they're happy again because they had the tough discussion, the I want, discussion with their company, and the company was honest about it. So it can go so many ways if you just, again, have the courage and the empathy to plan and have a healthy conversation about what is.
Yes, as they say, the truth will set you free. And there are a couple things I also want to mention. I have been coaching some senior marketing leaders. I've been coaching for 20 years. And one of the things I think people get a little spun up about or hung up on is that promotability means I need to have a more elevated title. But in reality, it might be a lateral move that gives you broader responsibility, a greater contribution to the profit of the company or to the top line growth. So I want to invite people to also think more broadly about what promotability really means in your organization.
Yeah.
And know that in the United States, I said it earlier, 9.1 million open jobs right now. None of us are indentured servants. Okay, so there are opportunities out there, and it's a great time to also be an entrepreneur if you're not getting what you need in a full-time salaried position. So look broadly and think broadly as we emerge from this pandemic. We have, I think, time for one more question if we have any. Otherwise, oh my goodness, lots of people saying thank you. Lots of information, by the way, in the chat. If you need to get the Promotability Index quiz, assessment, or book, our producer, Steph Kaplan, is putting everything in the chat. So make sure you look there. Thank you, Caitlin. Boy, I love this when our audience actually sends out links and promoting our work. That's pretty cool. Thank you, Caitlin. So Steph, now you'll always have an extra co-producer named Caitlin if you ever need one. This is fantastic. I love the energy today and the excitement about people wanting to be promoted and to make a bigger difference in their own organizations. This is really great. Tell us one thing, Amii, that's going to be really different, that some advice you would give our audience as they return in some way, shape, or form to their new work environments and want to add more value.
It's the relationships. I think it's really about building those relationships, figuring out who needs you, who you need, and then investing there and understanding their goals, their struggles, and being helpful and just paying it forward, because it's the best way to form a relationship is by helping someone out, doing a favor for them, or being willing to listen.
That is well said. And I always, my saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. Don't let the Delta variant or some other constraint hold you back from saying to someone, I will go meet you outside for a walk. Let's go take a walk. Let's go jogging. Let's go play tennis. Let's do something where we can just build some informal bonds with one another and get to know each other and what makes us tick and what we care about.
Yeah.
Wow, we're getting so many positive comments. And that is, what COVID taught me is that as you are wanting to be promoted or add more value, it is all about the relationships. It's not how many degrees you have and how many certifications you have. Those are table stakes. It's about deepening the kind of relationships, Amii, that I think you and I have developed with each other.
Thank you. Well, it's been wonderful.
So enjoy some more Pink Martini concerts this summer.
Thank you. I'm excited you get to go to see them at Wolf Trap, I think, right?
August 11th, outdoor concert. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's a great one.
I have missed that. You know me, I love to sing and I love to dance. So I think my cat is sick and tired of my singing and dancing at this point. Amii, please come back and see us. We loved having you. And all of you who have not gotten your Promotability Index guidebook, run, don't walk to your nearest online seller and get your copy today. And yes, Priya, you are so welcome. Mark, Jean, Subrat, Christina, we're so glad you joined us. And remember, in 2 weeks, we have another live stream. So make sure you join us as we bring up our announcement for the next session in August, my birthday month. We are going to be sitting down with another great person. Don McGuire is the Chief Marketing Officer of the multi-billion-dollar organization Qualcomm, a leader in the world of human-to-human communications. And we're going to sit down and compare notes on what marketing leadership lessons we have learned during the pandemic. So I really hope you will join us for that. And one last thing, too. I'd like to ask you a favor, a little quid pro quo here. I have been actually invited to be nominated to the Thinkers 50 Awards, which will be held in November. Now, if you find that the work I'm doing is having a positive impact on your career and on your organization, I'm going to ask you a favor. Would you be willing to nominate me for the Thinkers 50? You can go to that link, which Steph will show you one more time. And the Thinkers 50 nomination will take 45 seconds of your time. If you go to this link at the bottom of the screen, and if you nominate me for Thinkers 50, scroll down one more category and pick the category called Putting Ideas into Action. Because putting ideas into action is what I want to do every time we have our LinkedIn live streams, or I am coaching clients, doing keynotes, or conducting consulting engagements with my clients. So I want to be known as that kind of leader, and I hope you will support me before August 1st. So until next time, remember, episode 43. Yes, Alan Hess, it's episode 43 coming up August 6th. And I look forward to welcoming you back to the Mindful Marketer live stream. So be sure to follow me and follow Amii. Make it a fabulous weekend.